Hello.
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Oh, it's good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I should have done more research, I'm gonna be honest, before I watched some of your videos. And also I have
Aw.
the application that you sent in talking about uh some of the stuff that you want to talk about. Also, I want to acknowledge the fact that like you were like one of the only people who actually put themselves out there and reached out to be on the show, and I greatly appreciate that.
Oh, definitely. Thanks. I appreciate it. I just saw an opportunity and I went for it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I do feel like some people, I mean, I can understand it because I think for some people it was either like, yo, I'm gonna wait until he asks me, or they thought like, oh, like maybe he won't actually want me to come on, but it's like I want anybody to come on, big or small.
Yes. I'm all for that.
So I think the best place to start is what has been, how long have you been making videos?
Uh, remember when we were all cooped up in our homes? uh, so like I made my channel. Its date is like tracks back says like April, near the end of April 2020. I've actually like kind of started making videos when I was like on TikTok. It was a dark time for me there.
Hmm.
Making like anime-esque content and talking about like, oh, these anime characters are very similar and like y'all overblowing stuff, and also just making content about like autism or I don't know, just trying to gain my footing. But by the time I shifted from TikTok to YouTube, I was like, I want to talk about an episode from the Owl House that was really good. It's the only one that's worth starting with. And from there, I just try to learn how to like edit my own audio and like footage and stuff from there. And every time like I open my editing software, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just learned something so new. This is so cool. So it's like I don't get bored with it. I get like excited to just work on something new. Like I just put out like a fat video, like an hour and a half, basically a movie about autism spectrum disorder, and had a lot of, and there's more people in the video too. Like my audio makes up about 30 minutes. They talk about for the rest of the remainder of time. I don't even talk as long as they do. And you think after that, oh man, I should like sit down for a while. But I was like, yeah, I'm ready for another one. Let's go again.
That's crazy though. Like I didn't realize that like you've only been doing it for a few years. I mean, I guess 2020 was actually a few years ago, which it
Oh,
feels
crazy to think about.
it feels more recent than it does. I sometimes I remember the fact that I've been doing this for like 6 years, and I'm like, nah, that's not real.
I feel like when I've decided of like, okay, now I know what I want to do. Now I know like what I want to talk about and the ideas I have. So about a year and a half ish, I would say.
Okay. Um, how was that transition from TikTok to YouTube? Because I've had a few people come on, especially like just talking to other creators. It seems like it's very hard to get audiences from TikTok to transfer over to YouTube and Twitch and other platforms.
Oh, it is. It definitely is. But uh, at the time when I was on TikTok and I was getting gratification from just seeing those numbers climb, and just like my only way of interacting with people was just through the comments in those videos. And when it was like lulling every now and again, I just decided to like, well, first off, I think I'm pretty sure I formed an addiction to it. So I had to wean myself off of the app and move more towards longer form content because like I have more to say, and I know I have more than to say, and a lot of people tell me I have a lot to say,
Mm-hmm.
more than just a minute platform will allow and can allow. Because like I have much more nuanced thoughts and complexities that I want to deep dive into. I want to have conversations. That's like my whole thing too, is like I want discussion, not discourse. So what I did was just weaning off of TikTok and learning how to like do some of my earlier, actually, a lot of my earlier videos were me making do with what I had. I had
Mm-hmm.
an iPad. I had a free editing app. I have an Apple Pencil. I can screen record. I can like draw my own stills. I ain't got no face camera set up. It's like, this is easier setup either way because I don't have to worry about lighting. Blah blah blah. So I just worked with what I had, and to me that was very self gratification. It was very gratifying to do that, and in time, the audience. I did try to like post clips and out of context stuff from my videos on YouTube to TikTok to like let
Mm-hmm.
people know I'm there too now. But like I just keep it all in my link tree on the profile and just let I don't even post there as often anymore or just talk about like my channels there. Uh kind of letting it die off or just like I don't even open it anymore. It's just a hellscape. I don't even know what's worse, TikTok or Twitter.
So you started making videos on an iPad?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I had to work with what I got.
I didn't even know you could like post to YouTube from an iPad.
I think what I did, I would take the footage and export it and use a little bit of iMovies off the iPad to like edit. This is crazy. Oh my gosh, this is so nostalgic for me. What I do, I'd throw myself into my closet and took my gaming headphones, and they're just like generic PS4 gaming headsets, and would use the uh, camera function of the iPad to record my audio. So it would just be a blank screen, but it can pick up my audio. So that's what I would use.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would just go into iMovies, take the footage out, and just edit the audio from there, and put all that in like PowerPoint or Power Director. And then when I figured out that I can actually download this on like a kind of crappy old computer, so I whipped out my old laptop and just try to like work out from there. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. This is like better than an iPad because like when I was working on the iPad, I only had 3 layers of footage and 3 layers of audio to work with. But at the time, like that's enough for me. I could only put a background, my still, and anything else on top of that else.
Mm-hmm.
So I just interchanged with that. I worked with what I had, so just used the second 2 layers. I don't even think I used background music that much because I just was just figuring out how to like use my own audio.
Right. I mean, even now, behind the scenes for all the Roundtable fans, I still use iMovie for like the initial, like first draft of all my videos, and then I take that and then move it over to Premiere.
Oh, that's so cool.
Just because I find it much easier to like edit down like raw footage and raw audio in iMovie.
Mm-hmm.
I had something I was gonna say, but then I forgot it.
um, I essentially was working everything off of my iPad. I would have my drawing app I would use and still prefer to use like IBS Paint, IBS Paint X. I would use that to draw. I would use that to like capture. Whenever I download images or took a screenshot, I would put it in the aspect ratio for the video
Mm-hmm.
and just like download it as a transparent PNG. And I still do this now that I have an actual like laptop. I decided like at some point I decided that I know I have a voice and I know I want to have discussions.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I feel like the video that really popped off for in my mind in my head that like I want to try start doing more of this as much as I can or as much as possible was when I made pan pan rap deserves better that video because I was like, man, I sure love pansexuality. I sure do love my pans out there.
Yep.
But why the frick are all the pans in media psychopathic, narcissistic, just so unlikable, which is so ironic because pans love any and every, like, regardless of gender. That makes no sense to me. But they're also the most complex characters, and like the ones I use for examples was like Deadpool,
Mm-hmm.
Rose Quartz, Rick Sanchez. Where it's like y'all kind of suck, but you're so deep and complex, and it's like a freaking catch-22.
Yeah. I mean, LGBT rap in general is like a very mixed bag where it's always like it's so weird because it's always some trope that every identity ends up being put in, where it's like it doesn't even always make sense like where that came from.
Right, exactly. That's so weird to me.
Yeah, like for example, like the bury your gays trope, I kind of understand where it came from, where it's like I guess you could like draw it back to like the AIDS pandemic and say like, you know, if you're gay, you're gonna die of AIDS or whatever. Like that could be where it comes from, but like that even feels like a stretch. So I'm like, why did that become like such a trope and such a common thing to do to gay characters? Like,
Mm, that's so fascinating.
yeah. And also like the non-binary thing, which
Oh.
I didn't watch it, but I saw you have a video on that.
Mm-hmm. So for that, I love my train of thought. Like, yes, I will criticize and analyze every sexuality and orientation when it comes to the genders. And I have like a trans uh deserves better rep video idea as well. I have
Mm-hmm.
so many ideas. But I'm like, whoa, gender identity. Hey, I'm cis. That's not really my it's not really my point of view to talk about. But what I can do is just like I'm just gonna share some observations. I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm kind of just noticing a weird pattern, very obvious pattern that a lot of the non-binaries are robots, aliens, very obvious pattern as well with like autistic characters as well. And
Right.
I'm like, non-binary doesn't mean not human. So I'm like, I'm just gonna share my POV and just hand it off and offer the stage to some actual non-binaries who can talk about this because I did get a wide range from responses. Some like not minding it, some thinking it's cool, some vibing with it, some just being like, nah, this is bull.
Mm-hmm. I
Which
mean,
is what I wanted. I like that. Like it's complex. It's not as black and white. It's not everyone in the community of their respective communities think the same because no one's a monolith. Rage, rage, rage.
right.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the most important thing is just like being willing to listen, because like I recently found a video from someone who was making a video response to one of my videos, and like I mentioned like some of the stuff that we brought up so far, and like they were just like they clearly were not educated on it at all, but they were like choosing to be angry about it because it's like, oh my god, you're like, you have to find an issue with like everything nowadays. And it's like, bro, if you just like stopped and like actually listened to what I'm saying, then maybe you wouldn't be as mad, because it's like it's not that big of a deal to just like stop and like listen to, because like part of it too is like I'm not even a part of a lot of the groups that uh I'm talking about. It's just like a lot of times with these tropes, it's like I don't even know what they're tropes until someone brings it up. Like for example with the non-binary thing, I didn't know it, the not making non-binary characters human was even a thing until Shira, and then I saw people upset about it, and I was like, I looked into it further. I'm like, yeah, that's weird how that's a thing. But like, even as like someone who greatly enjoys Shira, I wasn't like jumping to defend the show. You know, it's like it's so easy to just like listen to people and like actually look into things and figure out like why are people upset and why do people want more.
It's just so because it's all a matter of perspective, and I myself as like a person on the autism spectrum, I have a different perspective than most. I have a very I don't what would people consider the normal or like standard reactionary train of thought is something I don't have or can comprehend and will never really understand and comprehend because it's like I don't think that way. I'm not sure of how to think that way, and it really can clash with my other identities. But that's why I find different perspectives interesting. Where it's like I don't necessarily, because I will not necessarily agree with every perspective I hear, because it's just reasonably not to.
Yeah.
I just want to know from other people's POV, like, okay, what is your train of thought and what led you there? And it's
Right.
like I never really considered it like that. I still disagree, but that's very fascinating how you got there.
Yeah. Because like there are definitely things where it's like if you don't come from a certain background, if you don't have the experiences to understand something, you're just not going to understand it unless you actually listen to the people who have.
yes. And even if it's like, I can understand a lot of people's hesitation to like approach certain groups and certain like thought points, especially where everyone wants to make everything seemingly political when it's like, nah, that's just basic human decency and rights and
Yep.
living. Where it's like, I just want to hear what makes them think this way and where is their train of thought coming from. I still think it's wrong. I still don't like it, but maybe find some common ground.
Mm-hmm. And it's also like, I'm there's a Shira video that I made like kind of as a retrospective that's in the works. I think Kevin said he wanted to like edit that, so like that's where it is in production for people watching. But in that video, like I mentioned the fact, like I touched on it real quick. It's like everybody talks about like how Shira is super political, specifically for the LGBT rep, but then it's like also a show that's like explicitly anti-fascist and anti-imperialist, and it's like nobody's saying it's political for those reasons, which are actual like political ideologies, but they're going to talk about how it's political and like make all these outrageous videos about how, oh, it's like forcing people to be gay, when it's like there's actual political ideology right there.
I bet my bottom dollar that if Avatar: The Last Airbender came out in today's climate, people would right off the bat, even if there might not be a lot of LGBT things going on in Avatar, at least not in the show compared to the comics, but they would be frothing about how, oh, what's with this woman and her brown skin and yada yada yada.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like just the fact that the waterbenders aren't white. Or the fact that like mostly Earth Nation isn't white.
Mm-hmm. It's just a complaint of like, I to a certain extent I understand if like people are so used to seeing a set character, like I am just so tired of just seeing the overly enthusiastic, yeah, let's help everyone kind of main male protagonist, to the point where can I get something different? That's why when The Amazing World of Gumball came out, and Gumball's like he's a cynical little, sorry, can I, am I allowed to swear? Sorry.
Yeah, you can swear.
He's just a little cynical little shit, and it's like, yes, because this is what kids can be. As much as kids can be like sweethearts, they're also little shits.
Yeah. But then we also have weirdos who are like, they'll criticize characters who are children who act like children.
Lord forbid kids act like kids. Like, I remember watching 12 Forever, and I forget the main character's name, but she is 12. Or she recently just turned 12 or 13. And she is kind of the worst. And I'm like, dude, you suck. But then I'm like, ha, that was literally me as a kid. So I'm like, you know what? Accurate.
I mean, 12 Forever was also just like, the kind of behind the scenes of it was also pretty dark. I mean, the show itself I enjoyed, but then like finding out all the other stuff was like, oh, that kind of changes the tone of the show.
Right. It's just so disappointing.
Yep. Let's see. You also want to talk about grasping of the fear of success. Can you elaborate on that?
Oh yeah. I remember when the video that really popped off and that got me to the account I'm at now, because before on Valentine's Day, I uploaded the double standards of sexual harassment in animation, because for a long while now I have noticed that there are a lot of examples in fiction in general, but in animation especially, in kids animation too, where girl chases boy. Oh, it's so cute. Oh, it's just funny love. Like, come on, man, don't be a jerk just because she kisses you and hugs you and hurts you kind of while doing it and harassing you without your consent whatsoever. Don't be a jerk. Don't break her heart because you look like the bad guy. Just sit there and take it. Versus if it was the other way around, if the boy was chasing the girl, and there's not even that many examples of that, but it's always played up for, oh, that's creepy. The boy's being creepy. It's like, leave the girls alone, boy. You're being creepy when you do that. Oh, but when the girl does it, oh, that's fine. That's fine. That's funny. That's actually cute. I'm over here like, no. Because as an advocate of true gender equality, I
Mhm.
will put hands, man, woman, non-binary, anyone. Like, that is not okay either way, because it just perpetuates the terrible stigma in dating advice, unintentional dating advice kids are getting from such media. I'm improving my own point in the comments of that video. Some other people whom watch shows like Puka, and I did a video very similar last Valentine's Day, talking about Puka and how, man, I loved this show growing up. It gave me such terrible POV about how romance works.
Mhm.
And my only objective with that video was that, yes, another Valentine's Day. I'm a ruin Valentine's Day because this is kind of my thing now. I love doing it. And it's like, I did a lot of, I feel like I did a lot of research. And for me, my video making process, the longest part is not the editing, it's like my editing is still pretty basic and bare bones because I'm still like learning as I go.
Yep.
It's not the editing, it's not, surprisingly, it's not even recording the audio or editing the TAM audio. It's the scripting because I want to make sure what I say is conveyed
Yep.
as thoroughly as possible, and just like, I am just that person who's like, years of writing essays and getting that ish done in school, I will not let that go to waste, and it has literally paid off, actually.
Yeah.
It's my standing point and pride myself on my vernacular and use of words and the thesaurus. I'm like, no shade at all to like people who are not as particular in their writing and their scripts for their videos. It's just, I write how I want to hear it. I write what I want to see, and what I don't like hearing is like, you said film, talking about this film, yada yada, film.
Mhm.
Use a thesaurus.
Yeah.
Movie, cinema. Oh my god, other words.
That's
I
definitely
like
something
vernacular.
that's something I've definitely been guilty of in the past, where people are like, how many times did this guy say show in this video?
I try to avoid that so many times. We're just saying like show multiple times, or I try to say television, or like this cartoon, yada yada yada.
Mhm.
But I do that, and I didn't have really any expectations for it. My only hope was for the outcome of like, I hope people learn something from this, or just like see where I'm coming from, and like that I'm not alone in this kind of thought. That like,
Mhm.
yeah, this ain't really cool at all. Next thing I know, it's like my #1 video for a long while. It broke over 100K views in a matter of like less than 2 weeks. It jumped me up from, because I was at I was about 850 subs at that time. In about less than 2 weeks notice, I'm about hitting 7K subs. Now I'm about like 8.5K subs, which I felt like
That's a
this
big
wasn't
jump.
supposed to happen so fast. It was overwhelming, and like, it's like, this is what, like, when people talk about YouTube or like ask advice of like, oh man, how'd you do it? How'd you like knew this was gonna be the one? And I'm like, you don't know. I don't
Yep.
know. I didn't even intend for this. I just wanted to talk my shit like I usually do. And it's like people in the comments and how they like found me, and thankfully, like, I have a back catalog of other stuff talking my ish as I do, and they like that, and that's what plagues them to stay.
Yep.
And I'm just like, I don't say the whole like, comment, and subscribe, and I understand why people do, and I get that. Get your bread, get your bag. I don't say it just because I don't think it's necessary. Well, I don't think for myself it's necessary, because it just seems redundant. Because it's like, if you like it, you'll like it. If you want to subscribe, you'll hit that button. You want to get a notification? I would recommend notifications because I don't even know when I'm going to post again. I didn't even say that at all anywhere in the video, but somehow a lot of people subscribed, a lot of people liked it. Some people didn't like it. We had some discussions, some discourse, more than I intended, but hey, I got people thinking, and that's my objective at the end of the day. I get you thinking out of your comfort zone of thought just for a moment.
Mhm.
And I didn't have high hopes. I try to like keep myself grounded and remember from those TikTok days of not getting obsessive over numbers, because that is what drained my creativity. And with making videos on YouTube, that helps fuels my creativity. It helps me like see things in a much more wider array and make things that I didn't know I could make. And and like years of watching other creatives make their videos and figuring out, oh, that's how they did it in that edit, and I can like, I'm not sure what that kind of thing is called in a software, but I can probably replicate it by doing this and that. It was really cool to me. So it's, I try so hard to just keep myself grounded in a reality of knowing that whatever else I post can flop, might flop,
Mm-hmm.
probably could or should flop for my own safety's sake, because I have some very hot takes on a lot of certain things. But if I change one person's mind or like open a new perspective at the end of the day, I'm satisfied. I'm happy with that, and that's what I want.
Yep.
And even with my next video talking about representation, and I did that collaboration with Geek Tunes, it was fine. It ended up fine. And I just okay, pulled that band-aid off of after big old video that brought you your success, and it's like you just won the National League. What are you gonna do next? I'm going to Denny's.
Yep. Thank you, Rod's Variety, for following, and also, yeah, like, I mean, for me personally, it was like I definitely have a different story from most people, where it's like I definitely kind of got carried to a certain point with YouTube, but it was also like it was definitely kind of hard, where it's like, all right, I'm on this 100,000 subscriber channel, and I'm just now like I've just started making videos, and it was literally just because like Kevin, through knowing me for years, knew like, okay, I know you can be entertaining. I know what you've been doing so far, and I believe that you can contribute to this like platform that we have right now. And even then, like, even with that privilege and like having that boost initially, like, I still don't know what makes a video pop off. I've had videos pop off. I don't know why, like, and like some of my most popular videos, like the Rose Quartz roast that a lot of people know me for, I don't even think that's anywhere near my best video. But like that just happened to be the one that like got enough people responding in a way where they wanted to where it just happened to blow up the way it did, you know?
Yeah. I just never know. And I feel like to this day, I like, even though like my double standard video was the one that blew up, I still feel like my best video, because as hard as I worked on the double standard one, I know exactly the timeline of how hard I worked on my Why Black Dynamite is a Hidden Gem retrospective. Because with my channel, I don't really kind of do reviews. I'm still trying to like figure out that aspect of the writing process. I just like watch episodes of like some shows that I enjoy. Like the first one I remember, it started off with like, and aside from like analysis, like the close enough, like some of my close enough videos I've done on boundaries, addiction, and failure, when I was like rewatching Close Enough, and how, man, Emily shouldn't let her friend walk all over her. This is some bull. And even kind of shows that even as a kind of young middle aged adult, having boundaries is good and healthy, and how Bridget getting over her phone addiction, like, damn, she like me for real, when I was on my TikTok addiction, and talking about failure and how like that looks different, and just also just sharing like small aspects of myself
Right.
in those videos, and just to reassure people that like you're not necessarily a failure just because your life is different now and you change things, your goals are different, and that's good, that's part of life. And what really warms my heart is when people tell me how, man, not me crying right now, or like not me getting a little choked up and teary-eyed, and I'm like, yes, cry, it builds my power.
Right. That's definitely a thing about reviewing media, is like it's an opportunity in a lot of ways to just share pieces of yourself. Like I think part of the reason why talking about Shira for me was like such a consistently successful series of videos for me compared to like other shows is because I was and even with Miraculous, like it's me talking about, most of the videos me talking about my experiences that like allow me to identify with the text. Like I've been in really toxic friendships that allow me to identify a lot with like certain aspects of Shira. When I was a kid, I was a fucking idiot and didn't know how to interact with people who I had a crush on, so I have a certain level of empathy for the characters in Miraculous, and I think that's part of the thing that makes people respond the way that they do and want to continue watching someone talk about shows, is the ability for someone to have a connection. Like even with Tariq, when he talks about the Peanuts, like not many people can make Peanuts videos like Tariq, because Tariq has a ability to make a connection between his own experiences and the shows he talks about.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think that's definitely something that's like a unacknowledged like utility to people who talk about cartoons and just talk about and review or even like analyze media, because it's not even really reviews at that point. It's just like it's almost it's something that makes people appreciate the media that they're consuming even more. Because like something that Toby Jones, I don't remember who told me this, I think it was Kevin, said that Toby Jones told him this, but it's like this, he said the same part of his brain that enjoys watching cartoons enjoys watching YouTube videos about cartoons.
Mm-hmm. I love that, because when I was growing up, I was very much I was actively watching the Round Table, and during the ever so infamous Steven Universe hiatuses, I was watching Vox's Crystal Clear theory videos and stuff, because I thought, oh, this is really cool, and like I'm really into this show, and I really want to like see who else is talking about it, who is making content or like giving ideas about it. It's like just building a little community or like aspects and learning that, oh, I didn't even notice that. I love oh my gosh, it's like when I was even younger watching Black Nerd Comedy, and after every episode on the dot of 2012 TMNT, just like an hour or two later, he would upload his Easter eggs video and like breakdown of the episode. I'm like, yay!
I
I was like,
we're getting towards like the last however long of this, so I want to kind of transition into, you mentioned that you were on the verge of publishing a short play focusing on the importance of communication regarding disability and specifically autism.
yes, so funny. So, uh, short, short story, kind of long, but when I graduated in about 2019, I sent out a lot of publication plays that I wrote while my time in school. Some of them did not get picked. Actually, a lot of them. All of them did not get either picked up, or it was just sat on the back burner. And like, it's kind of like, it's like when like applying for job applications. It's like some people get back to you and just tell you that like, sorry, we're not moving forward with you, or you just hear just radio silence.
Mm-hmm.
And after some years from that, got a little discouraged and was just focusing on also finding work and pandemic and blah 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 blah. 3 years later, I get reached out from a theater in a small community theater in New York, asking like, "Hey, we still have like your play, your short play that was on file from like the contests years back," and they will ask me essentially like, "Could we produce it?" And I'm like, "Sure, what?" I'm like, yeah, that's like, because at that time, like, I was about to head back to work. I was trying to get my life together again.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to get into that young adult swing of things. And they offered like an honorarium, which is like basically paying me my rights to like use, well, paying to basically like me loaning out like the script, and for them to like put on the play with me and like two other playwrights who wrote works for it. And I got to, unfortunately, I couldn't physically go because like it's on the other side of the states for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to at least sat down with the director and like the casts that they had, and they seemed like a cool bunch of folks. And the play itself is called Why I Dance, and it's about how it's based on my time in college when I was in a dancing class. I really liked it, but my only issue was, well, probably everyone else's. I danced way too wild. And
Mm-hmm.
when my partner and like my professor was really cool and was like, oh, we can have guys dance with the girls, but hey, let's just go by height, or y'all can dance with whomever. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So I danced with like a lot of the girls, and I preferred dancing with like the girls anyway because like they were well, I was taller anyway. A, but also B, I lead. I am lead. I have to have control because that's just my control freak in me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I had a lot of fun with dancing and learning the steps and stuff, but my issue, my problem was I kept basically hovering my partner over the floor and just like swinging them around. Almost, we were taking ballroom, not swing dance,
Yep.
but it was a lot of fun. But we worked it all out in the end, just like talking. And I'm like, oh man, it's a good thing none of my partners are claustrophobic because I held on really tight because like my love language is touch, and I'm a monster hugger. I'm like Scorpia.
Mm-hmm.
What's her quote about? I am brave, strong, and I give great hugs.
Yeah.
I'm brave, strong, loyal, and I give great hugs. I'm like, that's me, girl. And from there, I'm like, oh, but what if I did have a partner who had claustrophobia? And that's
Mm-hmm.
where basically the idea and the premise came from. And it's just two college students who have to learn from each other that, like, this character, Lovely, who is heavily, obviously, based on me. I'm JJ
Mm-hmm.
Quinn telling this. It's basically me. Uh, who's like, yes, I love to dance, and like you get to learn her backstory, or she gets like she monologues about how like what answering like a question she brought up to her dance partner Sally of like why I dance, and Sally's just uncomfortable with Lovely and just doesn't understand her or like her little things and quirks. But then there's like this other character, Jesse, who's non-binary, and they come in and just like dance egotistical bravado, and it's like, it's great that you two get to be in this dance competition, probably win some money and blah blah blah, and you get to ace out of PE, Sally, because you don't like PE, but I could have done it for my career. I don't think of Double Trouble. Funny because I wrote this so long ago before I even watched Shira,
Mm-hmm.
but uh they kind of put in Sally's mind that, well, something seems kind of off about Lovely, and basically Google diagnosed her that like, oh, dude, she's autistic. She's weird. That's why that explains all this weird shit that's happening with her. And then by the time Jesse leaves and they go back to rehearsing, Sally just like blows up at Lovely, and it's just a whole ordeal, and it's just spilling guts, emotional moments, blah blah blah, emotion, crying. They just get a chance to talk, and how like Sally explaining about her claustrophobia and Lovely explaining about her autism, and they dance a light rumba and try to like work out a compromise. And that's a big message of like disability and compromise and communication about people, because like you don't know what another person is dealing with, and it's like on one hand it's none of your business unless it has to be your business, is
Mm-hmm.
the thing.
Right.
So that play, they performed it in like back in August 2021. I want to say 2021, 2022. No, definitely was 2021. And the director, the man who runs like the playhouse, told me that like, hey, you and like 10 and like 9 other disabled like writers, or who writes about disabilities and stuff in plays, we want to offer you guys an opportunity of like getting published in like Next Stage Press, which is like I think local or small New York play publishing place. I'm really bad at the wording of this, but
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my gosh, I could be published again. Because technically I was already published when I was 18, but that was like a small library thing, but it still
Right.
counts, darn it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I can get one of my plays published, and I was so excited, and so like I had to like just change the format to match it. So all that is done and done. I'm getting a couple of the copies like sent to me soon enough, and I'm just so excited because it's like I held on to like these plays that I wrote like 3-4 years ago, and kind of lost my enthusiasm for like playwriting since then because I had so much rejection and other stuff came up, but kind of like lost my energy for it. So very similar, very much like what I was talking about in my failure video on it on Close Enough, is how like my dream and an aspect of like playwriting, it didn't necessarily die with just all those rejections and stuff. It was revived with the enthusiasm of like what I got out of making YouTube videos because it's still scripting.
Yeah.
Because I'm still funny. I'm
Mhm.
hilarious. But I'm
Yeah.
also smart. And I can project that and just talk about what I want in any kind of script form. Because with script writing for plays is a very particular format. But works like I can make my own format of how I write my own scripts.
Hmm.
And everyone does that. It's really cool. I can go by my own beat at my own drum there. So to me, it's like, oh, this is so. But I feel like a part of me is still also happy that like the young me of who aspired to be like a writer and write more is very happy and satisfied with that. I don't know moving forward if I want to write more plays or get back into writing in general, even though like I would like to write for animation,
Yeah.
but I think at this moment in my life, I'm just still trying to find my stability. I'm still just trying to figure it out, and right now YouTube is that great creative outlet for me, scripting wise, visual wise, and I still try to pick back up on my drawings every now and again.
Hmm. That's
But
really
yeah,
cool though. Like, did you get to see the play performed in any way? Like, did they have recordings or anything?
unfortunately, because it was a part of a short play festival, they had my play performed in the other two, so they couldn't record it. But I got to sit in on Zoom rehearsals and got to meet the cast. And to a certain extent, it was like the casting was pretty much true to how I wrote the characters. It's weird calling the characters I wrote for the play OCs in a way because it's like I have a vision in mind and I intentionally wrote all my plays where it's like uh be casted as women and or non-binaries and people of color because very much lacking those demographics in the play and the theatrical scene.
Right.
So I intentionally made it where it's like I'm open to casting, but so long as it's if you can't get a POC or this or that and the third, fine. But you better exhaust all you can. And even I was like even more happier to learn that like in the casting for like Lovely, since she's based on me, so woman of color,
Hmm.
autistic woman of color, that the actor who played her was also a person of color who is
Hmm.
autistic. So I'm like, this is the truest form casting I've ever wanted. It's beautiful.
I mean, based on my proximity to like theater and stuff, I would think it's not that hard to find like autistic people of color in theater, but I don't know.
Right?
Like, it definitely seems like there's plenty of diversity in theater. I mean, they might not get like the leading roles, but I think it's definitely one of those things where it's like it's not even a thing of like are those people there? It's just are they getting the shots that they deserve? And part of
Yeah.
that would be writing roles for them where they can actually get to show what they can do.
Yes, creating that opportunity and just letting them know that you can have this opportunity, whether you have to make it yourself or you find one made for specifically tailored for you.
Yep.
And that's kind of like what I like with my channel is when I can, and especially I like to give the opportunity to have other people on and just share their perspective or just like a note from their POV of how this or that or the third is happening and just like different perspective and giving opportunities. Trying to Hamilton that shit. Trying to Nick Fury that shit, man.
Yeah. Well, it's about 11:30, so I think I'm gonna wrap it up on this interview and then just wrap up the show. Thank you so much for coming on. You've been a pleasure to have on.
Thank you so much for having me. Even though I pretty much invited myself and barged my way in, but I loved it. I loved it so much, Tom.
The
And
door
if
was
you
open.
ever, oh yes, I would love to come back. If you, oh no, I'm happy.
Mhm.
I'm just happy with it.
All right. Do you want to plug anything before you go?
Uh, drink water, eat food. I have a Ko-fi. All my like links to my socials are in basically in my profiles of all my socials, like on my Twitter, on my YouTube. Uh Subscribe to Tom.
Follow me on Twitter at TommyPQM, and also check out Sugma Mail. Probably cooling off with doing the edited videos of the stuff from the stream, and probably posting more of that on this channel where I post the full VODs. And also check out the Roundtable, check out Toon Drip, check out all that stuff.